Gabriel, thank you so much for being here, sir. Absolute pleasure to have you on.
It's time to end the interview.
Yeah, that's it. It was a good one. I loved it. I think we did a pretty good job, I'd say.
I feel like you got what you needed.
Yeah, definitely. And then some. And I'm just stoked to have you on. Thank you, sir.
Later.
I wanted to start here though with a little excerpt from Los Yesterday's Bandcamp, that says, through the production rings with the high ceilinged echoes of the Penrose studio, the songs retain the idiosyncratic architecture of that could only have been hatched by two mad geniuses in a garage. I think that's a great kind of introduction to the music that you're making.
Two matching geniuses?
Two mad geniuses. Mad.
Oh, mad geniuses. Oh. Well, definitely, I would agree with the garage part for sure. I just built this room in a garage a couple of weeks ago. A new house in Altadena, California, and just built this space. You know, if you walk outside, it's an old beat down garage, but inside is I'm still in the garage.
It's looking good. Yeah. You got the nice soundproofing on the ceilings there. Yeah.
Oh, dude, this is hilarious shit. Some folks were just closing down some highfalutin like Finnish architectural studio / workspace, and one of the things they did was sell like super high-end office sound baffling, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I mean, even look at this stuff. Check this stuff out. Like, what the hell?
That looks awesome. It looks good. Is it now, as of right now, because you said it's kind of new, is it doing the job? Is it doing what you need it to do?
Sounds so good. I did this. I actually did the first live drum recording yesterday, or 2 days ago, for a guy that I work with, and they wanted to be like one of those sort of like Northern soul cuts. And it was the first time that I'd done drums live in here, full on playing. And the way I record them is, I usually just do one mic, and then either a second mic on the snare or a second mic on the kick drum, but definitely it's usually one mic. Wow. And then it came out really solid.
Awesome.
Came out really solid. Yeah. Super stoked.
That's pretty crazy. Just with two mics that you're recording it with. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing that out of necessity. And then once I met Gabe Roth from Daptone and started working with him, I realized he used one or two mics maximum as well. Generally the same mic. It's called an Altec Coke bottle mic. Super fun, cool mic. And I mean, it's just I run it through a little 4-track tape machine and get it all nice and crunchy.
That's a good deal. Yeah. So take some notes. You viewers at home there trying to record the drums. That's all you need. Bingo.
Tuning the drums and having like a cool sounding kit obviously is, that's the most important thing, and then also your approach as a player, the confidence always comes through.
Absolutely. Yeah. So music's really easy to make. Anybody could do it. Just go ahead and jump on it. Lickety split. That's what Gabriel's saying. It's just anybody could do it.
You just got to dip in, man. Just jump in.
Right on in.
Press record, jump the hell in.
There you go. When did yourself and Victor Benavides, am I saying that correctly?
Correct, yeah.
Yourself and Victor Benavides start Los Yesterdays. How did that come about?
Well, Victor was actually a singer that I met through my brother. He was actually singing with my brother's bands many years ago. And then I was always doing projects here and there, and I started writing some stuff. Actually started writing some stuff for a couple of like video games. And as I was just getting into the sound, and this is like 6 years ago. I mean, I grew up on, I'm Mexican American from Los Angeles. I grew up, with oldies and soldies and Motown in the backyard and in the house all the time. So I just found myself like, it kept falling back to that music. And so I wrote a song, instrumental, which actually became a song called Mr. Yesterday. And my wife was, she's like, you should send it to that dude, Victor. I bet you he can really do something great with this. And I did, and he came back with something so solid. And yeah, I think we ended up writing like 8 songs within a couple of months, all based around old soul. And we were just at a backyard party I was at a backyard party at Mario C's house. He's an old friend of mine, a Beastie Boys producer. And this guy heard me playing one of those songs for somebody out of my phone, and he walked up and he just told, "What the hell's that, dude?" And I played it for him, and we met at that moment. And his name is DJ Egon, is Egon from Now Again Records, and I guess he was a general manager for years at Stone's Throw. So I played it for him over my phone. He's like, "Dude, I'll sign that shit tonight." So we started working with Egon directly after that, and then pretty quickly after that, another friend of mine, a kid that I met when I was living in Venice Beach. Back then, his name was Drew, but I met him and I started recording him in my little Venice Beach apartment. And years later, he changed his name to a folk singer named Pokey Lafarge. And Pokey, he and I always, for the last, I don't know, I guess 17 years, always shared each other's demos and new stuff that we were working on. So I had sent him all these like old soul tracks, and he had just met Tommy Brennick from Dunham Records and Daptone Records and Charles Bradley and all that stuff. And he said, "Hey, can I play this for my friend Tommy?" So he played it for Tommy. Tommy called us. We met Tommy, and Tommy was like, "Dude, we want to sign you at Daptone or whatever it's going to be. And, do you have a bass player and a guitar player? Because I know you're a drummer, Roland," which is me. And Victor's the singer. And we were like, "No, we actually don't have a band. We're just, doing this in the garage for now." And he's like, "Well, we'll be your guitar player and bass player." So he and Gabe Roth were like in the band before we even met, like jammed. It was very odd.
That's an insane kind of just one step after the other just happening so naturally, it seems like.
Went through it like that because it happened sequentially pretty quick.
Wow, that's a good deal.
Yeah, it was
going back to when you and Victor kind of first started putting it together. Did you guys know that you guys were kind of on the same page musically, like what you guys wanted to do within the band sonically?
we wanted to do like the oldies that we grew up with as Chicanos in California. And the Mexican American community takes a lot of pride in their clothing and their cars and things like that. And the African American community, who we often lived next door to, took a lot of pride in the art that they put out. And we you see a lot of that in the neighborhoods, the intermeshing and using of each other's stuff. And so as Mexican Americans, we were always huge fans of soul music, the sweet soul stuff, and also the funk and stuff like that. So we wanted to do music that was stuff that we'd heard as kids growing up in the hood. And so that was really the focus. There was one funny situation that did happen, and I told Tommy Brennick and Gabe Roth the night I met them. And that was probably that was either the first time that Victor came to the studio to do vocals, over some of this old soul, or the second time, but he said, hey, you know, this sounds like the Dap Kings. And I'd said I hadn't heard of them. And he said, you haven't heard of like Charles Bradley or anybody like Daptone or Dap Kings? And I said, no. And so he put on a Charles Bradley video. And as soon as it came on, you know, I hit the keyboard and I was like, don't play that in here, bro. Please don't do that. He said, well, all right, you know, chill out, bro. Why? And I was just, because I don't want to be influenced by that stuff. That stuff sounds great. And I don't want that to be my competition. I don't want that to be something that I go back and go, oh, this is how these guys are doing it now. Let me try and get a sound like that, or let's write a song more like that, because they have a career. So, you know, again, the night I met Tommy and Gabe, I told them that story and they both laughed really hard. And they're like, yeah, that's why we like your music. You didn't try to imitate the stuff that we did 15 years ago, which is, you know, I think for them, it's a lot of new soul acts that's what they're listening to and trying to imitate is what Daptone put out.
Yeah, it is interesting if you look at what's coming out today. It's always inspired by something else. It's inspired by something else. It always goes down like lineage like that. And that's kind of interesting that people are looking at the newer side of this sound, especially this soul kind of sound, and that's what's influencing them.
Yeah, the modern guys that have done it in the last 20 years. Yeah. So I think that I was afraid to say that to them, but the truth was that was one of the things that they really liked about us, right? That we weren't trying to imitate what Daptone had been putting out for 15 years. Back to working with Victor, you know, it was kind of effortless. I mean, the guy really he's super well read. He's like an encyclopedia. You know, he just comes up, and he's also just a bird. I mean, he comes up with lyric and melody off the top of his head the first time he hears anything, and it's pretty often pretty much what is going to end up, you know, on the song.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
To have that gift, oh, it's insane. That's a good guy to go into business with. I'll tell you that right now.
Really is. He is, you know, he's an anomaly, that man. He's like I said, I mean, I think that, and it's also the stuff that he grew up reading that guides his creativity, and he brings a lot of that brings a lot of imagery. You know, it's almost like all his songs are little vignettes, little short movies. It's pretty cool. I mean, my musical experience as a kid is way different than Victor's, but we're both Mexican American. My music, like when I first fell in love with music, was at a church in East Los Angeles that had just moved to California from Spanish Harlem. And, you know, my dad was fresh out of jail and he wanted to get on the good foot. And so we went to this Pentecostal church in East LA. And like I said, the pastor was Puerto Rican from Spanish Harlem. So he brought this music to Mexican Americans in East LA that they hadn't really heard before. And it was, you know, it was almost Islander, it was very Latin Islander and gospel mixed together. So when they played the two together, it really sounded like early disco and soul. And then then you put the choirs on it and the horns, and it was quite I mean, I would just love to go and sit in front and watch these people perform. It was super magical. And you know, Victor's experience was a lot with families sitting around playing guitars, playing old Mexican songs, or they were learning you know, like soul and gospel songs and Beatles songs, I think. So and he was up in the Central Valley and I was here in East LA. So it's super different, but you know, also just very similar at the same time.
were the drums the first instrument that you picked up? Was that like the first go-to? I'm gonna try these out.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Um, when I was 9 years old, my uncle Dave um, realized how much I loved the Beatles, and so for my ninth or 10th birthday, I can't remember, but he bought tickets to go see the musical Beatlemania, and took me to go see it. And I was there with my mom and aunt, and we were sitting pretty close up there, and those guys were incredible. They were really playing live. They were really for a 9-year old, I felt like I was truly watching the Beatles. And I remember the moment that over the stage was this diamond screen that was projecting often like news, just to tell you like what time of the era the Beatles were in. A diamond screen is, anyway, this one phrase came over the stage that said, this date, August 1971, the Beatles break up. And I started crying as a little boy. My uncle held my hand, and I knew at that moment when we were driving home that I was gonna do music. I had to.
Yeah, you're gonna redo the Beatles. You said, I'm not on my watch. I'm fucking putting them back together. Took it upon yourself. Everyone else is too lazy to do it. I'm glad that somebody stepped up.
Yes, sir. At 9.
Yeah. Big task. You ready for it, man? Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it difficult kind of learning how to play and kind of getting it together and being able to play within your house with all your family there?
I think we lived more in apartments. For me, I'm turntable taught. That's the phrase we use. So I just learned from just putting records on the turntable and air drumming it, and then listening to it, and then just trying it out, and then that really does sound like it. Let's try that again. And before you know it, I could air drum an entire Beatles record, or some. I remember being super excited being able to air drum Brick House, and then actually sit down and play Brick House back in the day. So yeah, just trial and error, just going and just being. For me, I think that my home life wasn't super peaceful, so I found like a really private place that was mine in just teaching myself how to play the drums. Music, really, it really was my God place. And I think at an early age I learned that, and I just stayed there. I'm still there.
It's not a bad place to be.
No.
There's worse places to be. That's a good one.
Oh yeah, thank you. I love it.
Yeah. No, it's good. I don't know who would say otherwise, but me and you, we're on the same page. It's like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
We're the proponents of music. Somebody's got to do it, and it's us.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Stepping up again. When at what age did you kind of start playing with other people? Were you like, all right, let's try to incorporate some other people into making music?
I think with my brother was learning Beatles and Rolling Stones and AC/DC stuff on guitar, and I started learning. They were older, so his older friends would come over and start to jam, learn. Hey, can you learn this song, play this song with us? And yeah, just like that, just learning rock covers and some funk songs and stuff like that. Blues, lots of blues. And I think when I was 15 or maybe 14, I actually bought my own drum set from having a paper route. And the guy that owned the music store, he'd let me go and play the drums that were in the where they gave lessons in the very back of the store. He allowed me to go after school to go back there and play. And, he heard me getting better and better and better. And he actually offered to buy the drum set for me, if I, signed a little contract with him to pay him back $50 a month, which I did. And I paid him back every single cent. So when I turned 16, he asked if I wanted to play in a blues band with him. And that is where it all changed for me, because I went from, learning Zeppelin songs or stuff that was on the radio, like Blondie songs or My Sharona or the Pretenders or whatever. I, was given like the super like rare blues, like, I was playing with people that were in their 50s and 60s, and I was 16 years old. And I really, I felt when these gentlemen would dip into their instruments, how the passion that they put into it, how it could lift a room and change attitudes and bring, smiles and happiness. And it felt spiritual. And that's when that was what I always wanted to achieve, was, that moment of almost like cathartic spirituality.
Wow. Now, was that kind of your first proper quote unquote shows that you did, was with that blues band?
That blues band, yeah, we opened up for Bo Diddley and
Wow.
a lot of local California blues acts. But, some of these guys were, older brothers, had been playing the blues since the late 50s. And like I said, it was completely different and than anything I'd experienced before. They made me learn how to do a shuffle. Just learn the shuffle. Just dig in, and when you see our heads bobbing, then you got the shuffle. And
be Purdy, yeah.
And they gave me like they gave me old blues records with these, drummers probably from the 40s and 50s that had that swing and shuffle down. And I learned that, and I learned how they approached it. And, it wasn't the way Charlie Watts did it. It was the completely different, a different approach, the old New Orleans players from a lot of the snare drum work that they did over there. It's a completely different approach.
Right. And again, it's kind of like going back, like you started with the Stones, and like those dudes probably inspired Charlie Watts to do what he did, and you're
Exactly.
kind of taking another step back. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah, that's when I learned, just always refer to the originators, always refer to the originators. I remember reading an article when I was probably in 8th grade on in Modern Drummer about I guess they were interviewing John Bonham from Led Zeppelin, and they asked him in this interview, who do you listen to? Like, what are you listening to right now? And I'll never forget it, because I knew who this artist was, and I never would correlate the two together. John Bonham said, right now I listen to Al Green. And I was like, what? This is not what I expected to hear. And now, as as an experienced musician, boy, do I get it. It's just how solid those guys were that were, Al Green's drummers, a few of them, Howie Grimes and Al Jackson Jr. Just insanity, just grimy, just the dirtiest of underbelly of society, gritty players,
Yeah.
it's just the touch, it's the way they just hit the hi-hat. And Bonham understood that. I didn't understand that in 8th grade, but now I do.
Yeah, a few years have passed. You're like, yeah, no, I get exactly what he's saying and where he's coming from on that.
Recently, last year, a band from Memphis came to California to play their first show ever, and they had been together since 1965. And their drummer and producer was Al Green's drummer for many years, Al Jackson Jr. And so me, Gabe Roth, and a few other guys put this band together. The band is called the Mad Lads. He's the gentleman from Memphis. And so we put this band together and did a few days of rehearsal. But what we wanted to do for them, because we were such huge fans, is we wanted to learn every nook and cranny of these 12 songs, every single, dip and pop and pull and push. And there's all sorts of neat things in their songs. And like I was saying, this drummer, Al Jackson Jr., was also their producer. So their music was profoundly magical. All the intros were the only time you heard these intros, and they were oftentimes odd time signatures, and the bridges were oftentimes not what you would expect in soul music. And it's just with this particular band, the Mad Lads. And so having to get so inside of Al Jackson Jr.'s playing for the Mad Lads, man, it was probably one of the biggest treats of my life as a drummer. And then to play with them, just absolutely insanely magical.
It's so interesting that it seems like all these kind of different nooks and crannies within the music that you were listening to and trying to play has really all just combined to create the drummer that you are today.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what that's what it's all about. I think you give to the music what you have, and then you also hopefully have the wherewithal to allow the universe to send you magic at the same time, and you kind of mix it all together. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think it's a good analogy. Going back to what we were kind of talking about before with people being inspired by something else that was revolutionary, and then that kind of revolutionary sound, as with like soul music, for instance, and the people who are making soul music now might not be looking at where it originated from, but what it became later years on. Do you think that people might look at your own music like that and look at Los Yesterdays and be like, oh, that's what we gotta kind of sound like, and not look at the people who inspired yourself?
I hope they don't. Really, it's out there. I mean, everything's on YouTube right now, right? And I would say just dig as deep as you can. I mean, when I was playing, I played punk rock as well when I was 16, 17, 18. And my bands would open for Dead Kennedys, Black Flag, Butthole Surfers, all sorts of cool bands. And our influence then wasn't music, it was a message for the most part. So our influence, although it was saying it through music, was more of like the LA Times, the news, the 60 Minutes, everything that was at that time that you could grab and dissect, and most of the time piss you off and scream about it, right?
Sure. That energy that's inside young men, especially. Yeah.
Oh man. And you know what? I was that first generation that we didn't have the draft. We didn't go to, there was no Vietnam. There was, there were volunteer wars to go to, like the Gulf War and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think my generation was the first generation that didn't have to go out there. And so it just so happened that was the same generation that punk rock came from. And so, I think that the testosterone and all those, in all those things that are deep inside a young man, I think punk rock really helped.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was also a young man, still am, but yeah,
Yeah.
I feel it myself.
Pretty damn young.
Yeah, yeah. 44,
Wait,
about
late teen.
45 next month. So yeah.
Do not believe that. Come on, bro. I'm not trying to pick up, I'm not trying to flirt or anything, but come on.
No, I'm 22.
But I thought,
So yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, wait,
I felt like you would have been right on the money of like the guess. Yeah,
early 20s.
early
Yeah.
20s.
Hear your voice.
Yeah,
I can hear.
I had to clear it. It was getting too high. I had to bring it back down.
Where do you live? Where are you calling from?
Your Belinda, California. So Orange
Oh,
County.
I'm not Belinda. I'm Gabriel.
That's a good one. I like that.
I'm here every Saturday, Friday. I don't know whatever it is.
Moving forward to Los Yesterdays, where did the name come from?
I think that we were all throwing, again in my garage, all throwing a bunch of names around, and that was one of them. And if I remember correctly, Victor had thrown that one in the hat, and I think that it was Gabe Roth's wife that said that was the one she liked the most. And so then we were just like, well, okay, we'll go for that one. That was it. And Victor and I wanted to do something that was very like what we call pocho or Chicano, like American, but of Mexican descent. So we wanted to use the Spanish and the English.
Bilingual, right?
There. Oh,
You guys are really in the garage while hashing this out in the early days. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, absolutely. Always.
Garages are
Always.
important. Garages are important, especially when you're a young man, and that's where you gotta hang out. If you have some friends over, you gotta
go to the garage.
gotta go to
hang
the
out.
garage. Yeah. You can't be making ruckus in the house. You gotta keep it outside.
I've been in the garage since I was 13, and I haven't left. I'm not going to tell you my age now, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, 26. That's my guess. That's my
20. I'm 27. I used to spend entire summers in San Francisco with my cousins. I was actually born in San Francisco, but we moved back to South Central when I was a little boy. But I have a lot of family in the city, and so I would spend entire summers there, and get influenced by the music that was happening in the city, which is completely different than the music that was happening in Los Angeles. Always completely different. And I also spent a lot of time in Compton with a big group of cousins, and they were the ones that were really listening to like the street, like the hard street music at the time, like Mandrill and Parliament, P-Funk, lots of early Gap Band, and lots of older bands that was doing newer sound, Manhattans and all that kind of stuff like that. So my influence, it was all that stuff was such a huge influence on me because I just loved music. So I loved everything. Like I took my daughter to school this morning, and I was showing her the rarest of anti-religious songs that anyone could ever find. It's a Black Sabbath album done with the singer from Deep Purple. The album's called Born Again, and there's a song on there called Disturbing the Priest. My influence is just everywhere. I just love music.
Wow. That's amazing that it stems out that far to different things. It's incredible.
You know what? The TV show that Tommy and I worked on last year and has got picked up for a second season this year. It's not a TV show, it's a Hulu show called This Fool. So I'm one of the composers on it. You look at these shows, and most of them have, a mother and daughter relationship, or a family thing, or it's just, or it's a medical show, it's called the sound of show. Generally, when they find it, that's what the composer is going to do over and over and over and over, right? Of course, the first time we get chosen as composers, we get a comedy that takes place in South Central LA, but it's in a Mexican American family. So the music that we had to compose went everywhere. I mean, it was jazz, lots of horror. Like we were listening to old Italian, film scores from 1967 horror movies, referring to that stuff, referring to lots of early 90s horror movies. And then there was lots of hip hop, which was super fun. Like I said, we did lots of soul. That's how we got chosen to do it, oldie style and soul stuff. But to be able to just like genre jump the way we had to, even from scene to scene, even from second to second, it was my Disneyland. and it was like, thank goodness. And Tommy's the same way. Just you have so much love and respect for so many different genres. There was stuff that we had never tried before, really like intimate acoustic guitar pieces. It's just like, not my fucking thing, bro. We're not John Denver, but let's just, smoke that. I'll put the mic up and press record and see what happens.
Now, how did you guys get the opportunity to be composing this music for this Fool? How did that kind of come about?
The music supervisor was looking for Los Yesterdays, and had reached out to me, but I'm not that social on social media, so I hadn't responded to her. So then she reached out to Tommy, and then we just ended up both, doing it because, he's an insane writer and producer, and he worked on tons of albums with Mark Ronson and Lady Gaga and everybody in the entire world. He's the true machine, and I bring the more like street, I don't know, Mexican American sound. So it worked out quite well. So she was looking for folks from Los Yesterdays to do that, and we lucked out. We were answering that and at the right time, and our schedules were open, and it worked out. It was super fun.
Yeah. Now, are you watching these scenes, like, kind of getting the scene and like, okay, we got to figure out the tone of this and hashing out from there?
Yes, we're writing, to time code, watching video. Man, the stuff was so fucking funny. It was often hard to even write to, because you're just like, how do you even write to that? I mean, it's just hilarious. It doesn't need any music. This doesn't need any music. We need to save money, but this scene doesn't need the music. But a lot of times we would go through the entire episode with the writers and directors and talk about ideas and how to approach stuff, certain scenes and stuff like that, or what influenced the scene. And then we would brainstorm on like, how about this, or how about that, or let's try this, have you heard this, and do stuff like that. So then we would, after that brainstorming, have a lot of notes on scenes, and then after that was trial and error. I think the funny thing is that we found that most of the people spoke in the key of D sharp. So we often wrote a lot of stuff to D sharp.
That's incredible. I didn't even think about kind of mixing those two, because there's always frequencies and keys to everything, and to put that into the music, that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, the lead, Chris Estrada, and like his mom were mostly in D sharp, so we just were like, this is the majority of the people talking So let's write a lot of these things in D sharp. May have faded away halfway through the season, the whole idea of writing in D sharp, but I think we tried to stay there. You know, it's pretty funny.
That's
We're
that's a super rad idea.
I didn't come up with the idea. A friend of mine writes for a show called Ginny and George, and she had mentioned that that's one of the things that she had tried was to write in the key of what the person is talking to in the scene. So if say the young lady in the show was yelling louder, she'd find that note. It's a high F. I'm going to write an F.
Right. Wow. Now, was composing the music for this, was it kind of a departure from what you were normally like doing within music, or did you find it kind of difficult to be like, all right, this is a little bit different from writing for like my own project or somebody else's band?
Yeah, I think that a lot of them are just like they aren't songs, they're cues. So but some of them, we would compose entire songs with the whole band and horns and timpanis and strings and all that glockenspiels and vibraphone stuff. I think Tommy and I didn't stumble too hard. I think that we tried to approach it with an open mind and also, but not like losing who we are as writers. We really tried to stay true to how we know how to write music. So it oftentimes it'd be like, well, fucking here's our fucking idea. Just do whatever the fuck you want with it. And sometimes it's like, yeah, that was great, or that sucked. That is not at all what we were looking for, bro. Just no, don't ever say anything like that again. But oftentimes, I think the majority of the times, it was just using our skills as songwriters. And like I said, Tommy is a true machine. He was, from what I understand, Mark Ronson's right-hand man on a lot of their huge projects. And, he's used to being in situations where you have to pull some magic out of your ass right now. And we did it in my little garage again. And just had Tommy brought two pieces of equipment that were, I think, a huge part of what got us to that level, which was a Mellotron, the old keyboard the Beatles used, and I think it's called a Matriarch Moog. So because we also had to do a lot of like sound, just creative sounds in the background, and these things called like sweeps, and so there was a lot of sound effects kinds of things. That was really fun. My friend is a balloon artist, and he would invent balloon instruments. So I used a couple of these like homemade balloon drums on some of the scenes, and it just worked incredible. It sounded like the biggest, most satanic, darkest drum you've ever heard in your life, and it's just a piece of balloon put over like a canister, but it's the way the mic is placed and how you hit it. And so, boom, and those kinds of things were so fun. You would never think that you would end up making music or a living by doing those kinds of things. Super magical.
Yeah, that sounds like a trip. Now, during that process of composing the music,
am I answering any of your questions?
yes, yeah, you are definitely, yeah. Gabriel, you're on it, man. I knew you would be. Yes, absolutely, sir. And I appreciate it. Through this process of composing music for this show, was there kind of as you said, there was some writing like, oh, let's try to do this and see what works and what doesn't. Was there anything that you were originally writing for the show that ended up going into an idea for a song for like Los Yesterdays? Or vice versa, was there a Los Yesterdays idea that never really panned out and then it ended up making its way onto all right.
That one right there, because when they first approached us, they said, and we may have you try and write the theme song, which is really great. So I started writing in my mind, without knowing the show, without reading any of the scripts, what a theme song could be. Now they ended up using a Chicano Batman instrumental, super cool piece of music. But yeah, so that piece I had written, Victor had put some vocal ideas over it, and now now it's become a full song. Actually, today we're finishing the bridge after this interview on that exact song. I think for now the song is still called "This Fool," which is the name of the show. And yeah, that's the way it happened. That when it did happen that way.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Going back to those yesterdays in the earlier days, like we were mentioned before, there was this you and Victor for a bit. Now, were you doing all of the instrumentation for the band up until kind of bringing Gabe and Tom into the fold?
I was, yeah. I was playing all that stuff, except for horns. We hired some old buddies of mine from a band called Ozo Motley. Incredible musicians. We got lucky enough for them to come over to my garage and do the horns on all the first early Us Yesterday songs.
Wow.
Yeah. But I did all the music, yeah.
Do you recall the first song that you guys hashed out for Los Yesterdays?
Yeah, I think it was that song, Mr. Yesterday. I had written the instrumental and sent that to him, and then he came over, and I think he actually sent like a phone message with him singing the idea over it, and I was like, wow, that was so cool. Yeah, bro, come on over. And then he came over, and we finished up the song, and he helped me write I was like, we should try and write a bridge like this. And that song is funny because it's more like the way Beatles arrange their songs, like where everything is almost a chorus. There's no ABC. There's no sort of like regular sequence of how a song is supposed to be. So this song, Mr. Yesterday, is, it's all chorus and a bridge and then all chorus. It's a very odd song. Happened to be the first one we wrote, and like I was saying, Victor helped me flush out the bridge, and it was done. We finished it, I think, that first night.
Wow.
First night. He's got a great ear as well. I mean, because I'm not musically trained, so I don't know the ins and outs of when you're supposed to play major or minor or do a half this and all that kind of stuff. So his ear is always like, oh, yeah, no, just move your finger. One, there it is.
Was that a turning point for you? I personally, like, oh my gosh, like we're really moving with this now. Like after that first song was created.
Yeah, I think we're both really excited about doing something and accomplishing something that really felt genuinely vintage. It didn't feel like anybody else we heard. It felt like ours. It felt like something that we could be proud of, and it came from us. We weren't. We sat down to write Old Soul, but it was, it was now. It was in the late 2000s, early 2020s. I don't know.
Later 2010s maybe, but nobody recalls it the fucking 2010s.
don't even, yeah, I mean, COVID fucked it all up for me. I still think I'm in 1986, bro.
No, that's good. That's a good one to be in. You're like, yeah, I don't know. And
I mean, Madonna was all over the place. Not my favorite.
the career that she's had, spanning,
Yeah,
wild.
wild. Yeah, I have a respect for anybody that can last more than 6 months in the arts. I mean, a lot of respect. So I'm not a hater. I just don't. I'm not a fan of her music, but I respect the artist for sure. Man, it's a lot.
There's something there since the '80s, like a Virgin to, I don't know, would be like the most recent Madonna song, but yeah,
No idea. She's still making music?
I think she's still making music. Yeah, I think she's going on tour again.
I heard that.
Yeah, she probably got some new tunes. Maybe.
Yeah.
We're gonna find
Yeah.
out because you and I are gonna go, Gabriel, and I'm really looking forward to it. We're gonna see what's what with Madonna.
Oh,
Kinda,
let's do it.
yeah, kind of stoked on it. So, but
Yeah.
that's later on.
Let's go mad on it.
Yeah. With your kind of experience fleshing out the these early songs of Los Yesterdays before the band was kind of formed, did that serve to help you within the kind of writing the songs for this Fool? Did that kind of come back in like, okay, like I understand that I've had experience playing even lead guitar or bass and rhythm and all these other instruments that were accompanied throughout the songs?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you use everything in your, especially with the show like that, where there's every genre I was um, talking about earlier. Yeah, I mean, you use everything in your artillery. Like you use everything that you, even if you've tried it once before, on a show like that, you're going to eventually have to try it. You know, I mean, literally, I have been inside the piano with with like, I don't know, a toothbrush hitting the strings deep inside of the piano, like down, 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 with the sustain pedal being held down by a giant brick so the notes can sustain out. And then, would sample that, slow it down, and that would turn into like a scary scene, shit like that. Really fun. But yeah, I mean, everything for this Fool, for that show in particular, we were jumping so many genres. It was, yeah, you have to use every tool that you've ever touched in music, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah,
Now,
I DJ cut, I rapped. I'm not a rapper. I mean,
trained by the turntables, but not so much rapping.
Oh my God! Listen to the tone of my voice. Nobody wants that.
It sounds
Just
good.
shut up and play drums.
It sounds like the key of D in my ears. It's just me.
It's probably C sharp.
Now, aside from composing music, you also produce a bit of music as well, correct?
Yes, lots of it. Lots of soul music. Yeah.
Now, how does producing and composing differ for you? Is it alike in some ways? And I mean, obviously different in a lot of ways as well.
Honestly, it's super similar. I mean, I think that the lines have been blurred because of home studios, because of COVID.
Your garage.
I think that, there aren't really as many of the classic producers out there with as many, because there's so many acts now because of the internet, right? So much music. So mostly everyone is their own producer. So yeah, when I produce stuff like a different artist, Trish Toledo or whoever else,
Madonna.
yeah,
her new
song. I've it's the same approach. I've written the music, I recorded all the parts, mixed it, and then have the singer come in and sing the parts, and then just master it, mix it, master it. Really, just like that, for the most part. Often, I think there was one project that Tommy and I did last year before he had to get out of this old classic Hollywood studio called the Sound Factory, and we worked with a soul singer named Dove, and we wrote like 12 or 13 songs with her. And that was a different experience because either I would bring in stuff that I had written earlier that day on piano, or if we didn't have anything, I was just on drums. Dove would be in a different room on vocals, and Tommy would be at a keyboard or a guitar. So that was a different way of writing for me. I think we probably wrote like 4 or 5 songs that way, and that was fun. I mean, a little bit like, for me, not used to just being on the drums to write, but helping to guide the songs through rhythm as a writer and producer, which was really cool. It was a different experience, because when I write, I usually just write either on keyboard or guitar first, and then map out the song, and then I'll record the drums, and then replay, guitar, bass, keys, or whatever after that.
Interesting. I thought that you would have taken the approach of laying down the percussion first, drum wise, and then building out from there.
Most of the time, I've tried that, but most of the time, what works for me is if I get the good foundation of like a chord progression and some breaks that would set up a chorus or a bridge. I most of the time write that on guitar or keyboards first.
Gotcha.
That's generally the approach. Most of the time, it's like writing the music first and then putting the drums to it.
Good deal. Yeah. Now going back to Los Yesterday's music, how did you, we kind of touched down on this a little bit in the beginning. How did you wind up putting your music out through Penrose Recording Company?
Yeah. Like I said, my buddy Pokey Lafarge introduced us to Tommy. Tommy called us immediately, and we met with Tommy Brennick. And he, is a big part of the Daptone family. He had his own imprint on Daptone called Dunham Records. And, he had Charles Bradley on that label. So when we met Tommy, he, introduced us pretty quickly to Gabe Roth. And, they said, Gabe is starting the new, like Chicano soul label. We'd like to have you guys on that. And, like I was saying earlier, and we'd also like to be your bass player and drummer. Bass player and guitar player. So yeah, it had all of that sort of happened really fast. And we were, on, he didn't have a name at the time. He didn't have Penrose. He's just throwing around names for the label. So yeah, we just started immediately, like writing with Gabe and Tommy. As soon as they joined, we started writing in my garage with them, which was a completely different experience. So much fun. Yeah.
Did it bring up more ideas and whatnot, like from you and everybody else is like, oh, we'll try this and we'll try that, and did it ended up like actually progressing the music that you guys were making?
Well, I have to say, first of all, Tommy Brennick and Gabe Roth are like some of the greatest musicians I've ever witnessed in my life. True magic. Both of these gentlemen are just absolutely insane musicians. along and as well as producers. So I was a little like taken back, starting to just write with them, because they could write circles around me, both of them. So I think I was a little intimidated at the beginning, but then, it would often be, well, this is your musical baby. This is your musical idea. So what do you think about this? How do you feel? They would often ask me. And I think that gave me, that reinforced my creative input, because once I started learning about these guys and watching like Amy Winehouse documentary and all these documentaries that they're in and they've written all the music for, it helped me relax and not be so intimidated by working with these monsters.
Wow. Yeah, that must be kind of daunting. It's like, maybe this, just throwing it out there, and they're just reinforcing you. It's super important.
Because you could just easily say, dude, I mean, you have the answer. I know you do, I know you have 30 answers. So why are you asking me? Because they also speak in like, they speak in like numbers, like that's a 1-4-5 against a 2-7 in a bottom 9th 6th situation. I'm like, the fuck language are you speaking, bro? I have no idea what you're saying. And then tell me like, oh yeah, you got it, And he was referring to the music I had written, but they were talking about it in music theory language, and I'm just like, I have no idea what language you're speaking right now. I went up half step, bro. I went from here to here, talking about this and that and 6th, and I have no idea what you're talking about. Minor 9th, diminished with the minor 9th with the funny. Did you really do that? And I'd be like, yeah, I guess.
I just did it. I don't know.
Total mistake, bro.
It's on there now. So yeah, now we're doing it that way.
So yeah, the intimidating factor was high for the first few songwriting sessions with those guys, and then they're also really generous with their ideas. They'd be like, hey, wouldn't you want to try something like this and like that? And oftentimes you just be like, oh my god. And that's the neat part about it, is that you would never put that idea in the song because you're not that person with the same life experience that they have. And Gabe always says that about like my bass lines that I write. He'd be like, I'd never write that shit. I would never write it. I would never come up with that. It's so fun, because he is, I think he would approach it both in a very soulful, old school way, along with, his musicality and his education. So completely different approaches.
But it all combines and works out.
Oh, so neat.
It's some good music.
Neat. Collaboration is I think, it's one of the hardest things to do, but I personally think it's more rewarding than just to write on your own. And I recently read an article about like collaborators in business or in the creative arts, it doesn't matter. But they were saying, if your personality is much more different from the other person's personality, your collaboration is going to exceed both of your expectations by far, because you're bringing all these different world ideas into this one picture. Anyway, it was a recent article that I read, and I loved it. It affirmed, because we're all very different people at the same time. Yeah, we love the same music, but Tommy's from like fucking some island off of New York. Gabe is from Riverside. Victor's from up north. I'm from down here. We're all very, very different, childhood upbringings and all that kind of stuff.
Right. But that totally makes sense though, that the more different it is, the more it'll succeed, and it'll progress further than you think it would. Yeah, that makes sense.
On when you put it together because of your differences in personalities, because of your interests, your different interests in life and politics and religion and the universe, all of it.
Right. Yeah.
All,
It all
so cool.
feeds in.
It all does. I think that John and Paul were probably very different people, obviously, but look what we got.
Yeah. And then of course you were the staple to bring them back together.
Yeah, they came and played at my 9th birthday party, the Beatles in my backyard, and where was I living when I was 9? It was El Sereno.
Yeah, I heard like a brief tape from that. Like somebody got like a little snippet. It's just a recording. It sounded super awesome.
Yeah. But Paul was playing out of a guitar amp that day because that's all like my uncle Chuco could bring, but it sounded good. Yeah, it was good. He brought his violin bass. I still have it. He left it.
Yeah, just never. I called him. I said, "Hey, man, you got to come pick this up. If not, I'm gonna be using it."
Didn't do it. He was on tour with Wings.
And that's it. After Penrose, well, what was Penrose before? It was Penrose kind of reach out to you and was like, "Hey, let's put your music, let's put Los Yesterday's music out on this label." Did you know immediately like that this is the correct place to be, the correct people to put it out?
We did. Well, I mean, also we were now in with the owner of the label. We were writing songs with him. But there were a couple of other labels that we were talking to, and great people, and some of these people were getting us licenses before we got signed, just from these demos that were licensing our songs to like film and TV. And so you kind of feel like, oh, I should really go down that path with them and release this group of demos that Victor and I had done, on this label, but do a whole bunch of new Los Yesterday stuff on the Penrose label with Gabe and Tommy. But we ultimately decided just to keep it down one path, and done. We've recorded albums worth of stuff, but we've so far only have released singles through them. And that's what's happening now.
Good deal. Now, did those singles that did come out before the that compilation album, the volume 1 of the showcase, the showcase volume 1 record?
Yeah, I think that 2 of the singles, which is 4 songs, were released before the compilation album. So I think we have like 3 songs on that compilation album. The answer is yes.
Tremendous album.
Oh my God. Everybody, and just the nicest group of people, man. The nicest crew of people you ever want to meet. All those cats, all the girls, all the boys, and all the bands. I just adore them all. I'm so happy for the success that these Sacred Souls are. I mean, I was engineering with Gabe on James Hunter record, and then the Sacred Souls came and they auditioned to Gabe and I in this room, and just sang like 5 or 7 of their songs acoustically, and we just sat there and listened and giggled and talked and smoked weed and drank beer, and next thing you know, here they are on Jimmy Kimmel. So cool.
Wild. Yeah, that album is just tremendous, with of course these Sacred Souls and the Altons and everybody who was involved in that. It's amazing.
Amazing.
I mean,
I think that album is the truest testament to Gabe Roth's studio genius. I mean, the guy is just a true scientist, in the studio. And I hear, not that I've ever gone to music school or anything, but I hear if you go to engineering school, they hand out an article that Gabe Roth had written 10 or 15 years ago called "Shitty is Pretty." And it's about like how to, on a budget, lo-fi, record an album, a full album, but just, with a few microphones. And it's supposedly a really important article that music engineering schools pass out to their new students.
Wow. Why do you think R&B and soul and these kind of forms of music has hit a resurgence in the past couple of years?
I think my sort of visceral answer is, and it could be a little maybe too heady, but I think that modern music has gotten too easy and too simplistic. And I think that soul music in particular, use real players, and you record it live for the most part with a full-on band, a guy sitting next to you on bass, a girl on drums, an actual live percussion player, a singer in the vocal booth, and you record it with everything, every single player. And a lot of times in those recordings, as a drummer, take 1, 2, and 3 will be really cool, but the guitar player on 1 and 2 hit a bad note, one note, but the song was no good. You have to actually go back and re-record the whole song, everybody live, and they have to play incredible or the best that they can. And it has to be, it's live. Every player has to kill it to get that take. I think that's one of the neat things about recording soul music, and also just songs and chords, how deep they get into classical instruments with soul music. There's a lot of orchestral instruments that you don't hear in any other music, giant church bells, ding dong ding. I mean, that's all over soul music. Glockenspiels, you don't hear that in any other music. It's all over soul music. Vibraphones, Wurlitzers, electric pianos, all over soul music. Wah-wah guitars, acoustic guitars. There's a lot of musicianship that's involved, and not to even speak to what the singers have to go through to actually be a soul singer, and the depths that they have to learn their craft. So yeah, I think from my perspective, it was about challenging myself as a songwriter and a musician to write good songs that felt good to me, and to then hopefully perform them one day as with the band. It's super fun and super magical. I think that's what it is. I really think that from the artist perspective, because they're the ones that are making it, right? I think that it's wholesome and it's real. It's the salt of the earth. We're not touching a button, and then
Turn
twisting
some knobs. Yeah.
It's it's legit. It's gritty. It's real. It's Um, it's a challenge. It's all of those things. So that's my visceral gut answer of why I think that there's such a resurgence in soul music, is because it's real, you know.
I like it. I like it. Now, are you surprised by the amount of kind of uh, popularity Nobody's Clown has
uh,
received since writing it?
yeah, I think that the song is strong, but I think that the video that Victor and the director Dave Braca put together during the pandemic, I think the timing was right. I think the imagery is perfect for the song. I think it was one of those things that just lined up. I think that everyone was at home when the video hit. Everybody was stuck at home during the pandemic. I mean, it was just a perfect, you know, scenario for it to do what it did. And I think that, yeah, I mean, the song on itself, on its own merits, is really, really good. But I do think that the video really has helped that get just, you know, catapulted to where it is. I mean, it's like almost 10 million, but it's not.
That's fucking huge. That's big. That's big numbers in my eyes. That's huge numbers. That's
Whoa.
awesome.
I don't really
10
know. I don't really pay attention to like social media stuff or YouTube or anything like that. But I know that we have a lot of love. I mean, my daughter just started art school in downtown LA, and when her friends found out that I was in Los Yesterdays, they were like, it was like meeting Paul McCartney or something. I was like, no, don't. She's like, Dad, you know what? You have to leave. You're embarrassing me. You know, my friends are freaking out that you're in Los Yesterdays. It's like her first week of school. I was like, I'm sorry. I had no idea. I had no idea it was that, like, you know, kind of thing. Really sweet though.
You're making a name for yourself at that school as well. Good for you.
Try not to.
I mean, just get your name out there amongst all the parents as well. You're dedicated. You're in there. It's good. Shows initiative.
I like being a good daddy.
That's awesome. Gabriel, thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting. It's been an absolute pleasure, sir. But before I let you go, we got some promo to do.
Okay.
All right. So Los Yesterday's music is streaming everywhere. Wherever you get it, that's where you can find it. And as well as the Penrose, that again, it's the Penrose Showcase Volume 1 record that is out as well through Penrose. So go ahead and go grab that. Great music all over that whole thing, as well as the label, just everything they're putting out, magic. And Los Yesterdays _official on Instagram. Okay, awesome. And that's where you can go and check out for new music and news and tour dates and all that good stuff. And This Fool on Hulu, season 1, right? Only one season so far, but
we're going to start season 2 in March.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, go check that out on Hulu, This Fool. Gabriel, you're amazing. Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to stop recording this and I'll talk to you in a minute.